Sai Sudha, Associate Professor, Department of Pathology from Sree Balaji Medical College and Hospital, Chennai. I have 9 years of experience in this field and I have 24 publications, 2 undergoing projects and 1 patent into my credit. Today session is about an interesting and most significant infectious disease in the medical history, and even now it is giving challenges to the healthcare system worldwide, that is tuberculosis. So we'll discuss the tuberculosis, all the key concepts of the tuberculosis, like including etiology, its pathogenesis, morphology, and finally how to diagnose that tuberculosis. So that at the end of the session, my objective is you should be able to clinically correlate the symptoms with the underlying pathology. Instead of memorizing the symptoms, you please reason out the symptoms. What is the reason behind all these features of a tuberculosis? So the ultimate objective is that. And with that, we'll proceed to the topic as such. Firstly, etiology. What is the cause? What is the cause for this tuberculosis? Causative organism is Mycobacteria tuberculosis. This Mycobacterium tuberculosis belongs to Mycobacteria genus, and these are a slender acid-fast bacilli. Acid-fast bacilli means it will have they'll resist that acid staining during Jerdon procedure. They'll have a unique lipid-rich cell wall composed of mycolic acid, which will give all the resistant properties of this bacilli. And the mode of transmission for tuberculosis is inhalation of airborne droplets containing organisms from the active case. Here the important point is active case. Not all the patients who are infected with Mycobacterium tuberculosis, they can't transmit the disease as such, because only those who are active cases, they can transmit the disease from one person to other person. And there is a rare entity called oropharyngeal and intestinal tuberculosis, which can be contracted by drinking milk contaminated with the organism Mycobacterium bovis. It is rare actually, but still it is present in some countries where they are using unpasteurized milk and where the cattle is infected with the Mycobacterium bovis. But other than that, most common organism is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It is an acid-fast bacilli. The risk factors. Similar to other bacterial infections, even for this infection also, there are some risk factors which will literally flourishes the tuberculous bacilli inside the body. They'll enhance the replicating capacity of the bacteria. The factors are poverty, crowding, and chronic debilitating conditions like HIV positive cases, and even some diseases like diabetes mellitus, chronic renal injury, chronic pulmonary injury. So diseases, all these chronic diseases, they will weaken the immune system and leads to exacerbation of the tuberculous infection in that patient. So these are the risk factors. So ultimately the important thing is, deciding factor here is immune system, cell-mediated immunity of the host, which it will decide the outcome of the infection, whether it should be latent or whether it can be progressed. So all that outcome is mainly depends upon the T-cell mediated immunity by the host. And we'll discuss the pathogenesis. So pathogenesis of this infection is a bit complex, and so we will discuss that in 2 headings. One is initial infection of the macrophages, and second, Th1 response. It is a type of T-cell mediated immunity, which is a crucial one, which I am repeatedly telling during this class. First thing, initial infection of macrophage. So immediately after gaining entry into the lungs, so most of the cases primary site of entry is lung. So in those cases, after gaining entry into the lungs, the first cell to be contracted is alveolar macrophage. So this macrophage will engulf the bacteria, and within the alveolar macrophage, this bacilli will go and they'll block the phagosome and lysosome fusion. As you all know, phago-lysosome fusion is very important in microbicidal killing property of the macrophage. So since it got inhibited, this bacilli will proliferate uncontrollably, or unchecked proliferation of this bacteria will happen, leading to mild bacteremia as well, and also multiple seeding of the this bacilli in various sites. So, but remember, this is mild for initial duration for about 2 to 3 weeks. Even though there is bacteremia, most of the patients will be asymptomatic at this stage, and hardly they'll have a flu-like symptoms of fever if at all present. But more or less, most of them are asymptomatic. So after this 3 weeks, what will happen? Our host immune system, the patient or host immune system will get activated and they'll try to fight against this bacteria, which is similar in any other case. Here also immune system will get activated. Here T cell mediated immunity is the one which plays a crucial role. Once it got activated or sensitized by the TB bacillus antigens, this T cell will differentiate into Th1 cell. This differentiation requires an interleukin called interleukin 12. This differentiation into Th1 is the crucial step because Th1 is the one which will mediate the mycobacterial killing mechanism by activating the macrophage. This activation includes, it will promote the fusion of phagosome and lysosome, or it will produce lots of free radicals like nitric oxide and other reactive oxygen species, ultimately ending up with killing of the mycobacteria. So this is the most end result of the Th1 response. But apart from that, apart from this defense mechanism, parallelly there will be some sort of tissue destruction also will be happening in that affected area. This is because of activated macrophage, which parallelly it will also secrete some chemokines and tumor necrosis factor, which will recruit more and more monocytes to that scene. And these monocytes will, once it reaches the tissue, it will convert into macrophage. This activated macrophage is called as epithelioid histiocyte, because this is very important cell in a granuloma. As I think you have remembered this granuloma formation in your chronic inflammation discussion. Okay, so this granuloma is nothing but aggregates of epithelioid histiocytes, and also along with epithelioid histiocytes, some histiocytes will fuse to form a multinucleated giant cell called Langhans type giant cell. So this granuloma formation, again the reason behind this is Th1 response, and at the same time Th1 response is the responsible one for the positive MAN2 test or tuberculin sensitivity test, which we will do routinely when you are suspecting any tuberculosis in a patient. We'll check first whether he is sensitized to the tuberculous bacilli or not by doing a MAN2 test. This test positivity is mainly because of this Th1 response. So this is about a pathogenesis, how it will gain entry, after that initial infection followed by host immune response, finally ending up with the containment of the bacterial infection. So with this we'll go towards the clinical spectra. Clinical spectra, this is also, again, it is not a simple bacterial disease, so there are various subtypes in this spectrum of tuberculosis. Those are primary, secondary and miliary TB. Primary, secondary name itself, primary TB means here it occurs in a host who is non-immune. That means he is not exposed to bacilli previously. Whereas secondary TB in which the host is immune to the bacilli previously, or he is sensitized to the TB infection previously. So in that case, if infection occurs, that is secondary TB. And miliary TB is a specialized entity which we'll discuss in the next slide, where we'll have a entire focus overview of the entire clinical spectrum of the tuberculosis. Here in this picture you can concentrate the subtype of the TB and with the characteristic morphology. Like firstly, primary TB. All these primary, secondary, usually it will affect the lungs only. So in the primary TB there will be some consolidation or some granuloma formation in the lung as well as lymph nodes. If most of the case of primary TB will end up with the latent lesions. That means the bacterial infection will be contained by the host immunity. So most of the patients will be will go towards the latent lesions. That means latent infection means here the organisms will be dormant and patient won't have any symptoms. Whereas only few patients will go and progress to the progressive primary tuberculosis. They'll have a pneumonia-like symptoms. And at the same time, secondary TB. Secondary TB, the most common mode of infection is reactivation of latent infection. As we have discussed, primary TB can have an outcome called latent infection. So that latent infection, if it get reactivated after a few years or after many years, at some sort of time, the host will have a immune suppressed state. So in that state, this infection will get reactivated, leading to secondary tuberculosis. But unlike to the primary TB, in secondary TB there will be more caseous necrosis or more cavitation, okay, more damage to the lung, in a simple words. There will be some just consolidation, focal consolidation, but here the entire apical lobes, apex of the lungs will have a extensive cavitation. This cavitation, when it breaches the bronchi or bronchioles, they'll spread the organism in the sputum. They'll expectorate the organisms in the sputum, which can be inhaled by other person, so that they'll transmit from one person to the other person. So this is the active phase which I meant when I'm discussing the mode of transmission. And there is a specialized entity called miliary TB. That means from primary TB or secondary TB, from lungs, this bacilli can have access to the blood circulation. That too, if it enters the systemic arterial supply, so definitely there will be widespread dissemination of this infection to multiple organs. It can affect any organ, but most common organs to be involved are again lung, liver, spleen, meninges, bone. Okay, in bone they'll call as spot spine, even in oral cavity. So many areas, any organ it can affect actually. That is miliary TB. But only difference is in miliary TB, the affected organ will have a multiple small millet size lesions will be there. So that is why the name miliary TB. So these are the subtypes of TB. And microscopically in H&E slide, you will see the characteristic granuloma formation with the central necrosis surrounded by giant cells and epithelioid histiocytes. And the most confirmatory test is anyways Jeden stain, Zeal-Nielsen stain. So in that, they'll be stained as acid-fast bacilli. They'll have that pink color rod-like structures within the macrophages. And grossly also, this picture will give you a clue that how it will be affecting a primary TB. In primary TB, they'll be very focal and they can involve parenchyma as well as hilar nodes. Whereas in secondary TB, there will be more necrosis, more cavitation in the apex of the lungs. Whereas in miliary TB, whichever the affected organ like liver, spleen, the entire cut surface will show multiple tiny grey-white tubercles. Those are nothing but granulomas. These granulomas will fuse or coalesce to form a tubercle. Just remember that. And what is the impact of this tuberculosis on dental health? See, this tuberculosis have a serious implications even in the dental health, both by direct impact or by exacerbating the pre-existing conditions. Direct impact usually on the oral tissues. They'll have a inflammation of the gingiva, tuberculous gingivitis, ulcers, tuberculous ulcers, and even granulomas. There will be nodule-like structures because of granuloma formation. So all these things can happen. Since dentist will be the first point of contact for these oral lesions, definitely they should consider this differential, tuberculosis as a differential when they are dealing with the suspicious oral lesions, especially non-healing ulcers like that. So, and the secondly, apart from direct impact, they also can exacerbate the pre-existing dental conditions like periodontitis, and since they weaken the immune system, definitely even normal oral bacteria also, they can lead to cause many serious implications. So, you all have to be aware that tuberculosis, its seriousness and its pathology. Diagnosis, how you will confirm its diagnosis. Anyways, even though the clinical history, symptoms, examination are very classical and leads to the diagnosis of tuberculosis, you have to confirm the diagnosis by identifying the organism. This identification can be done by acid-fast stain smears, which you can taken from the sputum, or cultures. Even culture with a solid agar media or liquid media, you can diagnose or you can identify the organism. And the most recent one is a PCR, polymerase chain reaction. PCR amplification of a mycobacterial DNA is the most sensitive test and more rapid diagnostic method nowadays. That you can easily diagnose the tuberculosis in early stages and you can plan the management accordingly. And with this, we have completed the key concepts of the tuberculosis. So you just understand the basic pathology, basic etiopathogenesis, and what is the reason behind everything. So since with this proper knowledge, you can easily diagnose and you can even prevent the complications at an early stages. And also it is easy to prepare a management plan accordingly if you understand the basic concepts of tuberculosis. This concludes my session. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you.